Some places look incredible on Instagram and feel like a parking lot in person. Others are perfectly fine, just nowhere near worth the drive, the price, or the 2 weeks you spent looking forward to them. These are the 20 places in America tourists regret visiting. Number 20. Wall Drug, Wall, South Dakota. Wall Drug is a pharmacy in a small town in South Dakota that has spent decades convincing the American road-tripping public that it is a destination worth stopping for. The billboards begin hundreds of miles away and accumulate with the kind of persistence usually associated with debt collectors. Free ice water, 5-cent coffee. When you arrive, Wall Drug is a gift shop, a very large gift shop with a pharmacy in it and an expanding complex of cowboy-themed decor, animatronic dinosaurs, and themed photo opportunities that have accumulated over the decades, the way interesting things accumulate in a place with a captive audience and no real competition for miles. It sells the same turquoise jewelry, rubber tomahawks, and bumper stickers available at approximately 3,000 other Midwestern roadside stops. The free ice water is real and genuinely welcome after a South Dakota summer drive. The 5-cent coffee costs more than that now. The experience of being there is, for most visitors, the dawning recognition that you drove considerably out of your way for a souvenir shop that has always been, at its core, a souvenir shop. A remarkable marketing achievement wrapped around a completely ordinary retail proposition. Number 19. Universal Studios Florida, Orlando. Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, promising a working movie studio experience. Visitors would see how blockbusters were made. The studio tour element gradually faded over the years as the park shifted toward rides and entertainment, which is fine. But the original identity is mostly gone, and what remains is a theme park that costs significantly more than it should and delivers an experience that ranges from genuinely excellent to visibly dated, often in the same visit. The wizarding world of Harry Potter is genuinely impressive and delivers on its promise in ways that justify the trip for fans. Several other areas of the park feel like they have not been meaningfully updated since the Clinton administration, which is a long time for a theme park to carry forward the same experience without significant reinvestment. During peak Florida season, the combination of August humidity that turns a line queue into a slow-motion sauna, very long waits for major rides, and ticket prices that exceed $100 per person before any add-ons are considered creates a specific kind of family vacation misery that the promotional materials do not preview. The resort fees, separately purchased dining plans, parking charges, and the steady accumulation of in-park spending create a final trip cost that surprises nearly everyone who did not research it beforehand. Number 18. Fisherman's Wharf, San Francisco. Fisherman's Wharf has been the beating tourist heart of San Francisco for decades. It has sourdough bread, clam chowder in a bread bowl, sea lions on the docks, Alcatraz in the distance, and every gift shop item you could possibly want that has the Golden Gate Bridge on it. It also has aggressive vendors, crowds that make walking a slow negotiation, and restaurant prices that do not correspond to restaurant quality. The actual fishermen who once made it a working commercial wharf are largely gone. The last significant working fishing presence diminished decades ago. What remains is an extremely polished and comprehensively commercial tourist district that delivers the experience of San Francisco as imagined by someone who has never been to San Francisco, packaged for sale in a concentrated area of souvenir shops, mediocre seafood restaurants, and Ghirardelli chocolate. The sourdough bread bowl is perfectly fine. The sea lions lounging on Pier 39 are free and genuinely entertaining. They showed up on their own in 1989 following the Loma Prieta earthquake and have been there ever since, which is a better San Francisco story than most of the brochures offer. Almost everything else that Fisherman's Wharf sells can be found in better form, at better prices, within 2 miles in any other direction. Number 17. The Washington Monument, Washington, D.C. The Washington Monument is one of the most recognizable structures in American civic architecture. It is also an experience that locals have largely given up on. You stand in line for an elevator ride to the top of an obelisk where mounted binoculars and small windows deliver a view of Washington, D.C. that is perfectly nice and available in better form from multiple other locations that do not require a timed ticket, a long queue, or a substantial wait. The ticket system requires advance reservation, and timed slots fill up quickly. The interior of the monument between the ground and the observation deck is a long elevator ride with nothing to see. The observation deck delivers a view that is pleasant but not dramatic. Washington, D.C. has a great deal to offer visitors. Standing in a line to reach a small room at the top of a white obelisk is genuinely optional. Number 16. Salem, Massachusetts, October. Salem is a genuinely interesting city with real colonial history and a dark chapter, the 1692 witch trials that resulted in the execution of 19 people, that deserves serious engagement. Outside of October, it is a manageable, atmospheric place with museums, historic architecture, and a waterfront worth exploring. In October, particularly as Halloween approaches, Salem becomes something else entirely. A saturated, overcrowded tourist experience where more than 1 million people descended on the city in October 2024 alone. Tour buses are backed up for blocks. Restaurants have lines around the corner. The actual historical content is competing for attention with witch-themed merchandise, haunted house attractions, and the kind of Halloween maximalist energy that makes the underlying history feel like a backdrop rather than the point. The story of what happened in Salem in 1692 is genuinely sobering. 19 people were executed, one was pressed to death with stones, and the mass hysteria that produced those outcomes says something specific and uncomfortable about how communities under stress can turn on their members. That is material worth engaging with carefully. The October version of Salem, with its witch hat merchandise and haunted house attractions, and crowds of 1 million people in a month, increasingly treats it as decoration for a Halloween party rather than a chapter in American history that deserves more than a novelty filter. Salem is worth visiting. October is probably not the month. Number 15. Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. Graceland is the Memphis mansion of Elvis Presley, who lived there from 1957 until his death in 1977. It is genuinely the home of one of the most consequential figures in American music history, and for visitors with a real interest in Elvis, it carries authentic significance. For visitors without that specific devotion, it can feel like a premium-priced walk through a very specific decorating aesthetic. Shag carpet, jungle room, trophy room, a racquetball court added in 1975, with a gift shop infrastructure designed to extract additional revenue at every available opportunity. Graceland's campus has expanded significantly over the years with multiple museum buildings, an entertainment complex, and exhibit spaces that add historical context, but also add substantial cost on top of the base admission. The house itself is not large by contemporary celebrity standards, and the tour moves through it at a pace that leaves some visitors feeling they spent more time in the gift shop than in the actual mansion. The experience rewards genuine Elvis fans generously. For visitors who arrive simply curious about the mythology, the gap between the price of admission and the depth of the experience can be considerable. Number 14. Kennedy Space Center, Merritt Island, Florida. Kennedy Space Center is the launching point for American space exploration, and by any reasonable measure should be one of the most inspiring visitor experiences in the country. The history of NASA, the Apollo program, the shuttle era, all of it is genuinely extraordinary material for a public attraction. A 2024 analysis of visitor reviews ranked Kennedy Space Center as the most disappointing major tourist attraction in the United States. A finding that reflects the persistent gap between what this subject deserves and what the on-site experience actually delivers. Reviewers describe exhibits that are inconsistently maintained, visitor traffic that makes meaningful engagement with displays and artifacts difficult, and a pricing structure starting at over $75 per adult that does not always correspond to the quality of the experience provided. The biggest waste of money, read one TripAdvisor review. Huge disappointment, read another. For a facility connected to the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, and Space Shuttle programs, human achievement on an almost incomprehensible scale, the experience of walking through it should feel transformative. For a significant percentage of visitors, it does not, which is a failure of presentation that the history itself does not deserve. Number 13. The Statue of Liberty, ticketed visit, New York. The Statue of Liberty is a genuine American icon and a monument with real historical meaning. A gift from France, dedicated in 1886, representing the principles that the United States has aspired toward and sometimes failed to live up to. From the outside, from a distance, from a ferry passing through New York Harbor, it is genuinely impressive. The ticketed visit experience is a different proposition. The ferry line is long. The security process is significant. Once on the island, the view of the statue up close turns out to be less satisfying than the view from a distance, because the statue is designed to be seen from far away and its proportions read differently when you're standing next to the base. Getting inside the crown requires tickets that sell out months in advance and a climb up 354 stairs. Many visitors who invest a full afternoon in the ticketed Statue of Liberty experience, accounting for ferry tickets, security lines, island crowds, and transit time, would have had a comparable or better visual experience viewing the statue from Battery Park or the Esplanade in Brooklyn for free, or from the Staten Island Ferry, which is free, runs frequently, and passes directly through New York Harbor with excellent sight lines of both the statue and the lower Manhattan skyline simultaneously. The statue is real. The history is real. The question of whether the ticketed experience is worth the time and money relative to the free alternatives is one that many visitors, standing in the ferry line for the second hour, find themselves reconsidering. Number 12. The Empire State Building, New York City. The Empire State Building completed construction in 1931 and was the tallest building in the world for 40 years. It remains one of the most famous structures on Earth. It is also, as of 2025, the 7th tallest building in New York City, a fact that sits awkwardly against an observation deck experience that charges premium prices and delivers views that include everything except the Empire State Building itself, which is the building you came to see. The observation deck has mounted metal binoculars and an open-air platform. The One World Observatory, Summit One Vanderbilt, and Edge at Hudson Yards all offer newer, more dramatically designed observation experiences. During peak season, wait times at the Empire State Building stretch significantly. The combination of high prices, long waits, and better alternatives nearby creates a visiting experience that many guests find underwhelming relative to the building's famous name. Number 11. Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans is one of the most genuinely distinctive cities in the United States. The food, the music, the architecture, the cultural fusion, and Bourbon Street, its most famous address, is among the most aggressively overhyped experiences the city offers. Bourbon Street is loud, crowded, and sticky. The daiquiri shops glow neon. The bars serve enormous cups of frozen liquid designed for maximum alcoholic volume and minimal flavor complexity. The smell is distinctive in a way that nobody would call pleasant. During Mardi Gras, the scale of the scene becomes almost incomprehensible. For visitors who want the specific experience of Bourbon Street, it is available exactly as described. For visitors who want New Orleans, the actual city, with its food and jazz and neighborhoods, Frenchmen Street, Magazine Street, and most of the rest of the French Quarter exist and are significantly better in almost every measurable way. Number 10. The Mall of America, Bloomington, Minnesota. The Mall of America is the largest mall in the United States by square footage and was, for a long time, a genuine novelty. A shopping complex with an indoor theme park, aquarium, mini golf, and enough retail to keep anyone busy for days. The idea of flying to Minnesota specifically to go to a mall was, for a while, something people actually did. The novelty has diminished somewhat. The indoor theme park, Nickelodeon Universe, is still operating. The Sea Life Aquarium is still there. The stores that make up the majority of the complex are largely the same stores available at every other large mall in the United States. Visitors who make the trip specifically to shop at American Eagle, H&M, and a food court report the discovery that this is not, in fact, a uniquely Minnesotan experience. The entertainment components justify a visit more than the retail does, but the retail is most of the square footage. The gap between the world's largest mall as a concept and the walk-through reality of it has disappointed quite a few travelers who made it a deliberate destination. Number 9. The Hollywood Sign, Los Angeles. The Hollywood Sign is among the most recognizable images associated with Los Angeles, and the experience of seeing it in person is best summarized by the fact that seeing it is pretty much all you can do. The sign sits on a hillside above the city. You look at it, it says Hollywood. You have now seen the Hollywood Sign. Getting close enough for a meaningful view requires either a hike through Griffith Park, which is actually a perfectly decent hike, independent of the sign at the end of it, or joining a tour bus queue that deposits visitors at a viewpoint with camera access and not much else. Getting near the sign itself is prohibited by fencing and security monitoring. The sign you see on postcards, in movies, and in the establishing shot of every television show set in Los Angeles is the sign. It says what it says, and it is about the size you would expect a sign on a hillside to be, which is to say smaller than the cultural weight it carries would imply. The experience of navigating Los Angeles traffic to a trailhead or viewpoint, parking, and then walking to a spot from which you look at 9 large letters on a hillside and take a photograph is the experience that many visitors describe as anticlimactic relative to the anticipation that preceded it. The Griffith Observatory nearby, with city views and an actual astronomy museum, tends to leave visitors considerably more satisfied. Number 8. The Alamo, San Antonio, Texas. The Alamo is the site of a significant moment in American and Texas history, the 1836 battle in which a small force of defenders was overwhelmed by Mexican forces under General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, resulting in the deaths of the entire garrison, including James Bowie, William Barrett Travis, and Davy Crockett. The phrase, "Remember the Alamo," entered American culture as a rallying cry. The site itself carries genuine historical weight. The physical site, however, is smaller than almost every visitor expects. A compact mission building in the middle of downtown San Antonio, surrounded by a tourist corridor of hotels, souvenir shops, and chain restaurants. The interior of the chapel can be toured, but no photographs are permitted inside. The experience of standing in a small historic building in the middle of a commercial tourist strip, trying to imagine the events of 1836, is a particular kind of historical vertigo that leaves many visitors feeling that the site itself was not quite the monument they had imagined. As one visitor put it after the trip, "I thought there'd be more." Number 7. The Liberty Bell, Philadelphia. The Liberty Bell is a symbol of American independence and the ideals of liberty, cracked, imperfect, and genuine, which makes it an honest emblem in more ways than the designers intended. It was rung to celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence and has served as an emblem of freedom movements for centuries. It is also, in person, a large cracked bell behind glass, smaller than many visitors expect, in a dedicated pavilion that you walk through in roughly 7 minutes. The surrounding Independence National Historical Park is genuinely worth exploring, with real historical weight concentrated in a small area of Philadelphia. The Liberty Bell Center specifically, the building designed entirely around one medium-sized bell, is an experience that many visitors describe as over in before it has quite started. The bell is real. The history is real. The amount of time required to fully experience the exhibit is brief enough to feel slightly anticlimactic given the anticipation. Number 6. The Las Vegas Strip, Nevada. Las Vegas spent years selling itself as the city where anything was possible and money flowed freely, not from your wallet to the casino, but from the atmosphere itself, which made normal expenses feel like part of the show. That era has been replaced by one in which the fees are extremely transparent, and the math is clearly unfavorable for the visitor. Resort fees, mandatory daily charges ranging from $25 to more than $50 per night, added to hotel room rates after the initial booking and not always clearly disclosed during the reservation process, have become one of the defining complaints about the Las Vegas visitor experience. The combination of those fees with elevated base room rates dining prices that outpace quality, parking charges that were free as recently as a decade ago on most Strip properties, and gambling odds that have always, and by mathematical design, favored the house creates a vacation where money leaves the wallet at a rate that surprises even people who arrived expecting to spend a lot. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 105 degrees, which transforms the outdoor Strip into an exercise in heat management. In September 2025, Las Vegas ran its first ever citywide discount sale specifically designed to draw back visitors who had been deterred by the cumulative cost of a Strip visit. The fact that the city needed to do that tells you something meaningful about the direction the experience had been trending. The Strip is still spectacular to look at, particularly at night. The gap between spectacular to look at and enjoyable to spend significant money in is where visitor reviews have been accumulating in increasing volume. Number 5. The Hollywood Walk of Fame, Los Angeles. The Hollywood Walk of Fame is 1.3 miles of sidewalk on Hollywood Boulevard, embedded with more than 2,700 stars honoring figures from film, television, music, radio, and theater. In concept, it is a tribute to American entertainment culture. In practice, it is a crumbling stretch of pavement with broken stars, costumed performers demanding tips for photos they initiated without permission, aggressive souvenir vendors, and an atmosphere that workers in the area have described as gotten from bad to worse. Greg Donovan, known as the Hollywood Ambassador and a longtime presence on the boulevard, put it simply, "I hear tourists say, it's not the Walk of Fame, it's the Walk of Shame." In surveys comparing visitor expectations to reality, it ranks among the most disappointing landmark experiences in the United States. The stars are genuine. The experience of navigating Hollywood Boulevard on a busy afternoon while somebody in a Batman costume follows you for 2 blocks is less romantic than the concept suggests. Number 4. Four Corners Monument, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. Four Corners is the only place in the United States where 4 states meet at a single point. Standing there means you can put one hand and one foot in 4 different states simultaneously, which is the kind of geographic novelty that sounds like more fun than it is. The monument itself is a concrete pad set into the ground on the Navajo Nation, with a bronze disc in the center marking the official point of intersection. A circular pavilion of vendor stalls surrounds the site, offering jewelry, food, and souvenirs from Navajo artisans, which is genuinely the best part of the experience and worth supporting. There is an $8 per person entrance fee. The site is located in one of the most remote and sparsely connected stretches of the American Southwest, which means it is hours from most other significant destinations in any direction, and reaching it requires a deliberate, extended desert drive that most visitors make specifically for this purpose. Visitors who make that drive, stand on the disc, take the photo with limbs in 4 states, look up, and see nothing but open desert in every direction, tend to describe the experience with a brevity that says something. That's it. USA Today has listed it among the most consistently disappointing tourist attractions in the country. The reviews are remarkably uniform. The idea of 4 corners, the only point where 4 American states touch, is considerably more interesting than the place of 4 corners, which is a concrete disc in the desert. Number 3. Mount Rushmore, Keystone, South Dakota. Mount Rushmore is genuinely impressive in photographs and in the cultural weight that has accumulated around it over decades. The granite faces of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln were carved under the direction of sculptor Gutzon Borglum beginning in 1927 and completed in 1941. It is an engineering achievement of real significance. In person, most visitors' first reaction is that it is smaller than they expected, a response so common that it has become a cliché about the experience. The monument is visible from one primary viewing area. There are limited walking options beyond the Presidential Trail. The visitor center provides historical context, and the surrounding Black Hills landscape is genuinely beautiful. But the monument itself, which people have driven to remote South Dakota specifically to see, takes approximately 5 minutes to fully absorb from the viewing plaza and offers relatively limited additional ways to engage with it. The gap between the famous image and the experience of standing 500 feet from the granite faces generates a specific category of tourist disappointment that multiple surveys have ranked among the highest in the country. Number 2, Niagara Falls, the American side. Niagara Falls is one of the great natural wonders of North America. Genuinely spectacular, genuinely powerful, genuinely worth seeing. The falls themselves are not the problem. The problem is the American side of the experience, which involves arriving in Niagara Falls, New York, one of the most economically distressed small cities in the state, and navigating a tourist corridor that has never fully delivered on the scale of the attraction at its center. The Canadian side of Niagara Falls has invested heavily in its tourism infrastructure. Resort hotels, a casino strip, an observation tower, well-maintained pedestrian areas. The American side has the falls, arguably the better vantage point for the American Falls themselves, surrounded by a city with 1 in 5 residents below the poverty line, a significant vacancy rate, and a visitor infrastructure that does not match what the falls deserve. Millions of visitors cross the border to spend time on the Canadian side after arriving on the American side, which is a statement about the experience that the American tourism authorities have been working to address for decades. The falls are genuinely breathtaking. Everything else on the American side is a more complicated story. Number 1. Times Square, New York City. Times Square deserves the top spot because no other place in America maintains as persistent a gap between cultural reputation and visitor experience at the scale it operates. 40% of tourists surveyed in a 2025 study said their visit left them more disappointed than delighted. The luggage storage company Stasher ranked it as the worst tourist attraction in surveys of visitor expectations versus reality. The thing is, Times Square is worth seeing once, the spectacle is real. But as a place to spend significant time, to shop, to eat, to experience New York as a city, it consistently underdelivers against the expectation that a location of this global fame has built over a century of advertising, film, and television. The shops are chains. The restaurants are mediocre. The costumed performers operate in a gray area of aggressive solicitation that the city has attempted to regulate with limited success. The noise and density at peak hours make conversation difficult. New York City has so much to offer within walking distance of Times Square, food, culture, architecture, neighborhoods, that choosing to spend an afternoon in Times Square specifically is a decision that a meaningful percentage of visitors, having made it, would make differently if they could. Regret is a strong word for a vacation experience, but there is a specific kind of feeling that arrives when you've spent money, used vacation days, crossed a country, and ended up standing in a gift shop parking lot, navigating a crowd on a crumbling sidewalk, or looking at a concrete disc in the middle of a desert thinking, surely it was supposed to be more than this. Every place on this list has something real to offer. Real history, real spectacle, real reasons people have been going for decades. The problem is rarely the place itself. The problem is the gap between the version sold and the version delivered. These 20 places produce that gap more reliably than almost anywhere else in America. If you found this one useful, hit like and subscribe. There are plenty more of these ahead.